Hello everyone, finally we reached the point where we should learn about functions in JavaScript. I set up a basic project over here for you guys so that to show you what functions is. We will have 4 topics. Let's start with the first one, which is called function declarations. So in this episode I will cover 2 ways in which you can declare functions. Actually there are more of them, but I will represent you only those which we will be using in future and which you will use in your future career most oftenly. Of course, sometimes you will use other ways of doing functions, but most often, like in 90% of cases, you will use exactly those 2 declarations. So let me write a simple function here. Let me start with the first type of the declaration. Let's call this function grade, and let's just type in here console.log. Let's put here grade. So this function is grade function. Yes, I'm sorry for pun, but that is the case. So this is the first type of the declaration, and basically what it tells the program is that we have a function called grade. The function is called grade. And what a function is just a piece of code which gets executed whenever you invoke it. And it will move us to the next topic, function usage. So before we move to the next topic, let me show you another way in which you can create a function. So let's call this function grade2, and let's just type the following, and let me copy this part of code, particularly console.log grade. Just output grade to our console. Save it. So what we are creating in this line of code is we are creating a function, and we are assigning this function to the variable grade2. I think right now it should be clear for you what const grade2 means. It just means a piece of data. In our case, this data is a function. In other words, this data is just lines of code. Okay, so these are 2 function declarations. What is the difference between those 2? So the difference those 2 is function hoisting, which we'll cover a little bit later in this episode. But right now, let me show you a function usage. So let's start with a grade function. Let's just call it, and when you want to call grade function 2, you will do basically the same approach. You will write the name of function, and then you will write parentheses and semicolon. Semicolon is not obligatory, but I would recommend using it because it keeps your code neat and preserves the style accepted everywhere. I mean in serious companies, okay? So now save the file. Okay, I forgot to attach the script in our HTML. Let's do it. So script, let me type here src equal main.js. Now save this file. Now let's refresh, nothing changes, that's okay. Let us open developer console, and if you don't know what a developer console, please watch my previous episodes, I talked about it there. So here we are. We can see that we got 2 outputs to our console. The first one is from the 7th line from over here, and the second output is from 12th line from over here. Actually, if you click on these lines, you will be able to read the code in the developer console, but right now we do not need this feature. So let's see them. So this was outputted due to our calls of these functions, and I can show you that, guys, by commenting out these pieces of code. After we comment out the function invocations, nothing will be output, because once function is created, it is not called. Okay? So save this. Let me refresh this page, and as you can see here, our console log is totally blank, because we did not invoke functions, and hence nothing was output to the console. So that is how you call functions. You write function name and you write parentheses. And actually, in these 2 cases, the grade is the same as grade2, except one thing, except function hoisting. And what a function hoisting means is that once you create a function, it will move up to the top of your file and will be accessible anywhere in your file. So when we declare a function in this way, we are granted with function hoisting by the browser compiler, which runs our JavaScript code. But when we declare a function in this way, we are not granted function hoisting. And so what this means is that if we will try to use our grade function before ever mentioning it, let's save the file, let's refresh the page. As you can see here, so right now the function declaration moved a little bit down, so right now it is 10th line, but as you can see here, the 10th line is this line of code. So if we will call the function which was declared in this way, before it actually was declared, we will be able to run it, because the function declared in this way is hosted, meaning it is the same as write it just up here. It moves all the way up. Okay, so but what will happen if we try to invoke grade2 function? Actually, we'll get an error, because function declared in this way are not hoisted. As you can see here, we are getting an error. Uncaught reference error, grade2 is not defined, and it is not defined over here at the top because we did not declare a function beforehand, or at least we did not declare a function in this way using the function keyword and then the name of the function. We just saved our anonymous function, which you can see here. Here is an anonymous function into a variable grade2, so we can't use it up here. Okay. So now let's move on to the last topic for this episode, and this is function parameters, or sometimes they're referred to as arguments. Actually, there is a subtle difference between those both, but just for now, for the sake of simplicity, you can consider them to be the same. And actually, I believe I never used the difference between parameters and arguments, maybe in some academic discussions, but when you will be just working in web development position as IT person, you actually, I don't think that you will care in general, you won't care about difference between parameters and arguments. You just should understand that function can get some data and use it inside its body. And this part over here is called the function body. So let's us create a new function down here. We can manage it for grade2 because it throws an error, and now when we save it and refresh, there should be no error. Okay, now let's create another function. Actually, I prefer the function which is not hoisted up, because then I understand it better, I feel it better when the function is created and when it is used, and that actually keeps to solve a lot of common problems. So I would prefer the declaration of function when you save it to a variable instead of the declaration which is hoisted up. Okay, but that is my personal opinion, and that is sometimes it depends on the case in which you use functions, but most oftenly in my tutorial series you will see me creating functions in this way, because for me it is a little bit more clear, and for you I hope it will be a little bit more clear as well after we will cover objects in JavaScript topic, and I think it will be in the next or in 2 episodes, so keep up with me. So let me create a new function. Let's call this function add 2 numbers. Let's call nums, and let's write function. Let's open the curly braces, put semicolon at the end over here because we are assigning a variable. So what is the difference between this function and those 2 functions above? The difference will be in the parameters. So we will have a and b parameter. So let me type it first, then I will explain. So let's console.log, and let's type here our ordinary string concatenation a plus b equals, so let me put a space over here, a plus b is equals, let me put a parenthesis here, a plus b. Let me save it. Now let me invoke this function, add 2 nums, and let me put here 2 and 7. Let me save this page, let's refresh this, and we're getting a plus b is equal 9. So let me even delete this previous code. I would recommend you to retype this code and figure out how it works on your own, and after you watch my video, to feel it a little bit better for yourself, because I believe every one of us can understand functions a little bit differently, and it will actually help you to feel the ground under your feet when you will later on work with functions on your own. So please retype this example, watch my video carefully, and try to get everything I'm telling you here about. I'm trying to tell as easy as possible, so I think it will be no problem for you. For right now, I'm deleting this piece of code, and we have only one function declaration, which is not hoisted, but it doesn't matter for us in this case because we are calling our function after we declare it, and that is the beauty actually of the absence of hoisting. Because, for example, if someone would call function here, they would get an error, as you can see here. Let me refresh the page. Because the function is not hoisted and it gets declared only beneath here. Okay, so let me move this piece of code beneath here, and let me delete this piece of code. So let me just walk you through this example. In this example, we are calling a function add2nums, and we are passing values 2 and 7 to these parameters over here, a and b. And actually 2 and 7 I call it arguments, and a, b, and call it parameters. Parameters are just names for arguments, and arguments is actual data which is passed to the function. But don't worry about it for right now. Okay, so we pass 2 and 7, 2 in place of a and 7 in place of b, and then we are just outputting this statement over here. And what this statement says is it says that a plus b is equal, it is just, so this piece of code over here is just an ordinary string. And it concatenates it with the result of this addition, and while we add, we have a plus b, and the value of variable a over here is 2, since we pass it 2, and the value of variable b over here is 7, since we pass it 7, and so it outputs a plus b is equal to 7. So let me save it and show you once more. Let me refresh the page. So as you can see here, a plus b is equal 9. So that's what happens. And let me just show you another example. Let's say, for example, I have 11 here and 33 here. Let me save it. So may you guess what I will get, guys. Here, 11, 33, a is equal 11, b is equal 33, a plus b is equal a plus b, which is 11 plus 33, and a plus b is equal 44, guys. I believe you guessed it correctly, and we are really getting 44. So thank you guys for watching. That's all for this episode. Ask in comments what was not clear for you. I will help you gladly. See you later. Bye bye.